The Valerian diplomatic vessel drifted through the asteroid field like a wounded bird, its starboard engines trailing ribbons of plasma into the void. Commander Ethan Cole watched from the observation deck of the human frigate Resolute as emergency crews prepared for the rescue operation. Distress signal confirmed. Lieutenant Vasquez reported from her station. They've got hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, life support failing. Ethan pulled on his EV suit, checking the seals twice. How many survivors? Thermal scans show 43 life signs. But there's something else, Commander. Vasquez hesitated. One of the biosignatures matches Valerian royal genetic markers. High tier. Very high. The briefing room fell silent. The Valerian sovereignty had ruled this sector for 3,000 years. Their technology outpaced humanity's by centuries. Their empire spanned 400 star systems while humans had barely colonized 30. And they had made their opinion of humanity abundantly clear at every diplomatic summit. Primitive, short-lived, emotionally unstable creatures, barely worthy of trade agreements. Doesn't matter who's on board, Ethan said, sealing his helmet. We're the only ship in range. Let's move. The boarding operation took 4 hours. Ethan led the primary rescue team through twisted corridors, filled with acrid smoke and floating debris. Valerian bodies drifted past them, tall, elegant beings with silver-blue skin and eyes like fractured amethysts, now dark and lifeless. They found her in the royal chambers on deck 4. She was pinned beneath a collapsed support beam, her leg bent at an impossible angle. Even wounded, even covered in dust and dried violet blood, she was striking. Her features held that characteristic Valerian sharpness, high cheekbones, elongated ears, a forehead marked with the intricate silver tattoos that denoted royal lineage. But her eyes, when they opened, held something Ethan hadn't expected from a Valerian. Fear. Don't, she started, her voice cracking. Don't touch me, human. Ethan knelt beside her, scanning the beam with his suit's sensors. Your leg is crushed. Internal bleeding. You've got maybe 20 minutes before organ failure sets in. He looked at her directly. I'm going to lift this beam, and then I'm going to carry you to our medical bay. You can hate me for it later. You don't understand. Her breath came in shallow gasps. If you touch me, if you carry me, by Valerian law, you will have claimed physical dominion over a royal. My guards will be honor-bound to kill you. Your guards are dead. Ethan positioned his hands under the beam, and I'd rather you alive and hating me than dead and maintaining protocol. He lifted. The beam groaned, shifted. Ethan's suit servos whined in protest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a final surge of effort, the beam rolled away. The princess screamed as her leg was freed, the sudden rush of blood bringing agony with it. Ethan caught her before she could fall, cradling her against his chest. I've got you, he said. Stay with me. Her eyes, violet, rimmed with silver, fixed on his face. Why? She whispered. Your kind gains nothing from this. We've given you nothing but contempt. Because you needed help. Ethan started moving toward the extraction point. That's enough. She lost consciousness before they reached the shuttle. Princess Kalith Vorshan of the Third Celestial House awoke in a human medical bay, surrounded by machines that hummed and beat in unfamiliar rhythms. Her leg was encased in a regeneration cast, crude by Valerian standards, but functional. The pain had dulled to a distant throb. A human sat beside her bed. Not the one who had carried her. This one was older, female, with graying hair pulled back in a severe knot. You're awake, the woman said. Good. Why? I'm Dr. Chen. You've been unconscious for 16 hours. Kalith tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The human. The male who, Commander Cole, is debriefing with the captain. Dr. Chen's tone was clinical, detached. Your leg will heal in approximately 3 weeks with the equipment we have. Full mobility expected. Your ship has been towed to our cargo bay for salvage assessment. Salvage? Calith's voice sharpened. That is a royal vessel. It is not yours it's debris. Dr. Chen didn't flinch. We've already transmitted to your nearest outpost. They're sending a recovery fleet. ETA, 11 days. She paused. Until then, you're our guest. Try not to give orders. We're not your subjects. She left before Calith could respond. For hours, Calith lay in silence, watching humans pass by the medical bay's transparent walls. They moved differently than Valerians, quicker, more chaotic, their gestures broad and unrestrained. They laughed loudly. They touched each other constantly, hands on shoulders, brief embraces, casual contact that would have been scandalous in any Valerian court. And they ignored her completely. No guards posted at her door. No attendants hovering nearby. No one seemed concerned that a princess of the Third Celestial House lay vulnerable in their midst. It was, Calith realized, deeply insulting. It was also, in a way she couldn't quite articulate, oddly freeing. When Commander Cole finally appeared, she had prepared a speech. A formal acknowledgement of the debt incurred, carefully worded to minimize the political implications while still honoring the letter of Valerian law. She had rehearsed it twice. But when he walked in, still in his duty uniform, dark hair disheveled, exhaustion carved into every line of his face, the words evaporated. "You look better," he said, dropping into the chair beside her bed. "Doc says you'll be walking within a week, running in 2, Commander Cole." Calith forced herself to meet his eyes. "I must address the matter of Ethan." He leaned back, stretching his legs. "If we're going to be stuck together for 11 days, you might as well use my name. That would be inappropriate. So is saving your life, apparently." He smiled, a quick, tired expression that transformed his face. "Look, I read up on Valerian customs while you were unconscious. I know what I did technically means. I know you're supposed to be bound to me somehow until the debt is repaid." He shrugged. "I'm releasing you from that. Consider the debt null." Calith stared at him. "You cannot simply, 'I just did.' The law does not work that way. You claimed physical dominion. You carried a royal. The bond exists whether you acknowledge it or not. Then, it's a one-sided bond." Ethan stood. "I didn't save you to own you. I saved you because you were dying. That's all." He moved toward the door. "Get some rest. I'll have someone bring you food." "Wait, He paused. Calith's throat tightened. In 300 years of life, she had never been so thoroughly dismissed. Never been treated as if her status, her bloodline, her entire identity were simply irrelevant. "Why did you read our customs?" she asked quietly. "If you intended to ignore them anyway." Ethan glanced back. "Because I wanted to understand what I was forgiving." He left her alone with that. By the 3rd day, Calith had developed a routine. She would wake, eat the bland but adequate human food, submit to Dr. Chen's examinations, and then spend hours watching the crew through her window. She told herself it was tactical observation, understanding the enemy, as her military tutors would have approved. But the truth was simpler and more troubling. She was fascinated. Humans worked in ways that defied Valerian logic. Their hierarchy seemed fluid, almost improvisational. Junior officers openly questioned superiors. Arguments broke out in corridors and were resolved with raised voices and eventual laughter. No one was executed for insubordination. No one was even demoted. And they achieved results. She watched a repair crew seal a hull breach in half the time her own engineers would have required, not through superior technology, but through sheer, relentless improvisation. When one tool failed, they invented another. When one approach proved impossible, They tried 3 more simultaneously. It was chaos. Beautiful, productive chaos. On the 4th day, Commander Cole, Ethan, returned. "You've been staring at my crew," he said, settling into what Caleth had begun to think of as his chair. "Should I be concerned? Your people are inefficient, probably. Your command structure is incoherent, also true. And yet your ship functions." Ethan smiled, that quick, tired smile. "We make do." "How?" Caleth shifted, wincing as her leg protested. "The Sovereignty has studied human civilization for 2 centuries. We cannot understand how you survive. Your lifespans are brief. Your bodies are fragile. You lacked telepathy, precognition, regenerative capabilities. By every metric, you should have destroyed yourselves millennia ago. Maybe that's why we haven't." Caleth frowned. "Explain." Ethan was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "When you know you're going to live for 500 years, everything can wait. Decisions can be postponed. Conflicts can simmer for centuries." He looked at her. "We don't have that luxury. When you might die tomorrow, today matters. Every choice, every action, every person you meet, it all matters, because it might be the only chance you get." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "But it also means we don't waste time on things that don't matter. We forgive faster. We love harder. We fight like we've got nothing to lose, because we don't." Caleth absorbed this. In Valerian society, humans were classified as Category 7, short-lived, emotionally primitive, suitable for manual labor, and little else. The idea that their weakness could be a strength had never occurred to her. The idea that she might have been wrong about them had never occurred to her. "Your Dr. Chen dislikes me," she said, changing the subject. "Dr. Chen dislikes everyone. It's her charm. She called me a spoiled princeling this morning." "That's practically a compliment coming from her." Ethan's eyes crinkled. "For what it's worth, I don't think you're spoiled. You don't know me. I know you stayed conscious for 4 hours with a crushed leg, refusing to show pain in front of your crew. I know you memorized every name of every guard who died protecting you. I saw the list you were writing. I know that when you thought you were dying, your first concern was warning me about the consequences I'd face for saving you." He held her gaze. "That's not nothing." Caleth looked away. Her chest felt strange, tight, warm, as if something were pressing against her heart from the inside. "You observe carefully," she said finally. "It's part of the job. Is it part of the job to visit a political inconvenience every day? You're not an inconvenience. Then what am I?" Ethan considered this. Someone who needed help. Someone who didn't ask for it but needed it anyway. And now, he paused. "Now, someone I'd like to know better. If you're willing." Caleth meant to refuse. Meant to cite protocol, propriety, the 1,000 reasons why a princess of the 3rd Celestial House could never fraternize with a human commander. Instead, she said, "Tell me about Earth." On the 6th day, everything changed. Caleth had progressed to walking short distances, leaning on a cane that Dr. Chen had fabricated with obvious reluctance. She was making her way to the observation deck. Ethan had promised to show her a nebula visible from that vantage point when the alarms began. Red lights, screaming sirens, crew members sprinting past her as if she didn't exist. She found Ethan on the bridge, his face carved in stone. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Harvesters." He didn't look at her. "3 ships. They must have tracked your distress signal." Caleth's blood ran cold. The Harvesters were a nightmare shared by every spacefaring species, nomadic raiders who stripped ships and stations for parts, selling survivors into slavery on the galaxy's black markets. They had no allegiance, no territory, no mercy, and the Resolute was a small frigate with minimal weapons, weeks away from any reinforcement. "You cannot fight them," Caleth said. "Even our warships avoid direct engagement. Your only option is We can't run. Ethan's jaw tightened. They're faster. If we flee, they'll catch us in open space. At least here, the asteroid field gives us cover. Then you'll die. All of you will die. Maybe. He finally turned to her, and his eyes held something that made her heart stutter, but not without a fight. And not without getting you to that escape pod. What? Vasquez. Ethan's voice snapped across the bridge. Take the princess to pod 7. Launch as soon as we engage. She can drift until her people arrive. Ethan died. Kaleth grabbed his arm, a gesture so intimate by Valerian standards that it should have made her recoil. You cannot sacrifice your crew for one Valerian royal. Your government will not thank you. My government will not thank you. No one will even know. I'll know. He covered her hand with his, just for a moment. Go. Please. No. The word hung between them. What? I said no. Kaleth straightened, ignoring the pain in her leg. If you will not flee, then neither will I. My guards died protecting me. I will not dishonor them by fleeing again while others fight in my place. You can barely walk. Then I will sit. She moved toward the tactical station. I am trained in Valerian combat systems, but the principles translate. Show me your weapons array. Ethan stared at her. Around them, the bridge crew had fallen silent, watching this impossible scene. A Valerian princess volunteering to die alongside humans. You don't owe us anything, he said quietly. This is not about debt. Kaleth met his eyes. This is about what matters. You taught me that. Something shifted in Ethan's expression, something that looked almost like hope. Lieutenant Chen, he said, his voice steady. Get the princess a headset, and show her how to target the forward batteries. The battle lasted 3 hours. Kaleth had never experienced combat like this. Not the elegant, calculated maneuvers of Valerian fleet actions, but something raw and desperate and utterly human. The Resolute dove through asteroid fields that should have crushed it. Its crew rewired systems on the fly, rerouting power from life support to weapons and back again. When the port batteries failed, engineers physically held circuits together with their bare hands, while others fired manual backups. And Ethan was everywhere. He commanded from the center of the bridge, but his command was nothing like what Kaleth knew. He didn't issue orders from a position of distant authority. He collaborated, adjusted, adapted. When a junior officer's targeting solution proved better than his own, he adopted it without hesitation. When the engineering chief contradicted his strategy, he listened. And his crew would die for him. Not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. Kaleth found herself fighting alongside them, her fingers dancing across targeting controls she'd learned in minutes. She destroyed a Harvester drone swarm before it could breach the hull. She calculated a trajectory that allowed the Resolute to use a spinning asteroid as temporary cover. She did not think about protocol or propriety or the 1,000 reasons why this was impossible. She thought only, we might survive this. Then the second Harvester ship breached the cargo bay. Alarms screamed new warnings. Boarders, dozens of them, pouring into the lower decks. The bridge crew drew sidearms, but Kaleth could see the mathematics in Ethan's face. They didn't have enough personnel. They couldn't hold the ship and fight the remaining vessel simultaneously. We need to seal the lower decks, Vasquez reported. Contain them until we've got crew down there. Ethan cut her off. Engineering team, medical staff. If we don't seal them, the boarders reach the bridge in 12 minutes. Ethan's hands clenched on his command chair. Kaleth could see the weight of it crushing him, the impossible choice between his people and his ship. There is another option, she said. Everyone turned. Harvester vessels carry override codes in their command matrices. If I could reach their boarding shuttle, I could transmit a cascading failure through their entire fleet network. She paused, It's a vulnerability my people discovered decades ago. We never shared it because we weren't worth sharing it with. Vasquez finished bitterly. Caliph didn't deny it. Yes. But I'm sharing it now. You'd have to board their shuttle, Ethan said. Fight through their forces. And you can barely walk. Then I'll need someone to carry me again. The bridge fell silent. Ethan stared at her. You die down there. Possibly. Why? We're just humans. Short-lived. Emotionally primitive. Category 7. Caliph felt something break open in her chest. Something that had been locked away for 300 years of courtly protocol and political maneuvering and careful distance from anything that might matter. Because you didn't leave me, she said simply. Because when I was dying in the dark, surrounded by my dead guards, convinced that no one was coming, you came. Not for reward. Not for politics. Just because I needed help. Her voice cracked. I have lived for 3 centuries. I have never been treated like I mattered simply for existing. Only by you. Only by your crew. And I will not let that die. Ethan held her gaze for a long moment. Then he grabbed 2 weapons from the rack. Vasquez, you have the bridge. Chen, keep those batteries firing. He moved toward Caliph. Let's go save my ship. The journey to the cargo bay was a nightmare. Caliph's legs screamed with every step, but Ethan was beside her, his arm around her waist, half carrying her through corridors filled with smoke and sparks. They fought through 3 Harvester patrols, brutal, close-quarters combat where Caliph's training barely compensated for her injury, and Ethan's ferocity barely compensated for his inferior physiology. But they made it. The Harvester shuttle sat in the devastated cargo bay, its systems still active, its crew dispersed into the ship. Caliph limped to the command console, her fingers flying across alien interfaces. I need 5 minutes, she said. You've got 3. Maybe. She heard him take up position at the entrance, heard the sounds of combat beginning again. Focused on nothing but the code flowing through her mind, the sequences she'd memorized as a princess studying enemy tactics, never believing she'd use them for humans. 4 minutes. Harvester soldiers were forcing Ethan back. 4.5. She was close, so close, Caliph. She turned in time to see a Harvester soldier emerge from behind a cargo container, weapon raised, aimed directly at her head. Ethan moved faster than should have been possible. He threw himself between them, taking the blast meant for her. The energy bolt caught him in the chest, spinning him backward, dropping him in a crumpled heap at her feet. Caliph screamed. She didn't remember crossing the distance. Didn't remember picking up Ethan's fallen weapon. Didn't remember firing until the Harvester soldier collapsed. What she remembered was falling to her knees beside him. What she remembered was his blood on her hands, red, so different from violet. What she remembered was his eyes, still open, still conscious, still looking at her with that impossible human warmth. Finish it, he whispered. Finish the code. I won't leave you. Finish it. His hand found hers, squeezed with fading strength. Please, let me know it mattered. Caliph pressed her forehead to his, just for a moment. Felt his breath against her skin. Felt something shatter inside her that would never heal. Then she stood, turned to the console, and finished the code. The cascade began instantly. Every Harvester ship in the system went dark. Weapons, shields, engines, all failing simultaneously. On the bridge, Vasquez shouted in triumph as the enemy vessels drifted helpless. Caliph didn't hear any of it. She was already on the floor again, cradling Ethan's head in her lap, watching his eyes flutter, watching his life drain away. Stay with me, she begged. Ethan, please, stay with me. Couldn't let them. He coughed, blood on his lips. Couldn't let them hurt you. Why? Why would you die for me? His hand rose, trembling, to touch her face. His fingers were cold. Because some things, a ghost of that tired smile. Some things matter more than survival. His eyes closed. Kaleth screamed again, a sound that echoed through the ship, through the void, through the hollow spaces where her certainties used to live. 11 days later, the Valerian recovery fleet arrived. Admiral Thenris Vorshan, commander of the 7th Celestial Fleet and Kaleth's uncle by blood, stood on the Resolute's bridge and surveyed the scene with barely concealed disgust. Human crew members went about their duties around him, pointedly ignoring his presence. "You should have died with honor," he said to Kaleth. "Instead, you fought alongside primitives. You shared military secrets with Category 7 species. His lip curled. "You formed attachments." Kaleth stood straight, no longer needing the cane. Her leg had healed. The hole in her chest had not. "I saved your ship and your crew," Thenris continued. "Against my better judgment, now you will return to the Sovereignty, where you will answer to the Celestial Council for your actions." "No." Thenris blinked. "Excuse me," I said no. Kaleth's voice was steady. "I will not return. You have no choice. You are a princess of the 3rd Celestial House. Your duty, my duty, is to those who have earned it." Kaleth stepped forward. "You speak of honor, uncle. What do you know of it? You have lived 600 years and never risked anything. Never sacrificed anything. Never cared for anything beyond your own advancement. You dare. I watched a human die for me." Kaleth's voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "A man who had known me for 6 days. He threw himself in front of a weapon meant for my heart, and he did it without hesitation, without expectation of reward, without anything except the belief that some things matter more than survival." Tears streamed down her face. Display of emotion that would have horrified her a month ago. "A man whose species we have mocked and dismissed and treated as less than animals. That is honor. That is what the Sovereignty has forgotten. And I will not return to people who do not understand it." "Then you are exiled." Thenris's voice was ice, stripped of title, of holdings, of lineage. "You will never set foot on Valerian space again. I know. You would give up everything for these insects?" Kaleth thought of Ethan, of his tired smile, his quick forgiveness, his stubborn belief that anyone who needed help deserved it. "I would give up everything," she said, "to be worthy of what he gave for me." Thenris stared at her for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned and left. She found Ethan in the medical bay. Dr. Chen had performed 3 surgeries. The prognosis was uncertain. Humans were fragile, and the damage had been severe. But he was breathing. His heart was beating. And when Kaleth sat beside him, his eyes fluttered open. "Hey," he whispered. "Hey." She took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "You're an idiot. Probably. You almost died. Also true. I'm staying." The words came out fierce, final. "I've been exiled from the Sovereignty. I have nowhere else to go. And even if I did," she squeezed his hand, "I wouldn't leave." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Then, you know what that means? By your own laws, the bond is acknowledged?" Kaleth leaned closer. "You saved my life. I saved yours. By Valerian tradition, we are bound until death." A small smile crossed her face. "Fortunately, I'm told humans die fairly quickly, so I won't be stuck with you for long." "That's dark. I'm learning human humor. Is it working?" Ethan laughed, a weak, pained sound that turned into a cough. "Getting there." They sat in silence for a while, her hand in his, the stars wheeling slowly past the viewport. "Kaleth, yes, thank you for staying." She lifted his hand, pressed her lips to his knuckles, a gesture of devotion so ancient in her culture that most had forgotten its meaning. "Thank you," she said, "for teaching me what it means to matter. The official report to Earth Command listed the engagement as a minor skirmish with Harvester forces, casualties minimal, outcome favorable. It mentioned nothing of the Valerian princess who had fought beside a human crew, nothing of the sacrifice that had turned the tide, nothing of the exile that followed. But the crew of the Resolute remembered. They remembered a princess who chose to stand when she could have fled. They remembered a commander who threw himself into fire without hesitation. They remembered what it looked like when two people from different worlds found something worth dying for, and something worth living for. In the years that followed, as humanity's reputation slowly shifted in galactic circles, many pointed to treaties and trade agreements, to diplomatic victories and technological achievements. But some who knew the truth pointed to something else. They pointed to a small frigate drifting through an asteroid field, its lights flickering, its hull scarred. They pointed to a human and a Valerian, standing together on the observation deck, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, watching stars that belonged to neither of their peoples. They pointed to what happens when someone offers help without conditions, and what happens when that help is answered with loyalty, sacrifice, and a refusal to ever let go. After he saved her, she refused to leave his side. And in the end, that refusal changed everything.